Very grateful that you all joined us here on this pretty, I would say, humid Thursday afternoon in Amsterdam. It's pretty bad weather. It feels like it's in the mid of autumn at the moment. But I'm glad you all made it here to actually share some really nice insights about what's going on in the fintech field. We have some really cool companies on stage talking about what they're working on, from payments to fraud prevention, pensions. I think you all get the point here. And of course, we're very grateful for our host here. We're very happy with Payhawk is hosting us here, so we're diving also with Payhawk into SME finance tools and the payment sphere that SME companies have to deal with. So I'm really happy with that. For the ones that haven't seen me before, my name is Don Ginsel. I'm currently the CEO of Holland Fintech, and really happy to take you through what we're going to do today and moderate it a bit throughout the day. The idea is that we try to keep it within an hour and a half and keep it really condensed, and then give you some time to afterwards have a drink and further mingle and get in touch with each other, hopefully build some good relationships. To show you a bit the agenda, what we're about to do, I'll briefly give you a market update of what happened up until December in the fintech world. We write a weekly newsletter and we always condense it a little bit in our meetups so we can talk about it a bit easier. Then we have a pitch by Roman on what's going on at Payhawk. Really curious to hear more about what they're working on at the moment. Then we talk about John from Fraud.net. We have Gady from Fraudio. We'll do an interactive Kahoot quiz. The ones that have been at our meetup before will know already what it is. You just download the app or use it online, and it's a bit of a gamification of learning about fintech. Then we'll have Oscar pitching Pensify, and Yash will be talking about Globodime. And then we'll announce who, according to your votes, was the best pitch today. And we'll wrap up everything and go to drinks, and hopefully you'll enjoy talking about all that you've learned and discussed and seen afterwards in the networking. Just very briefly about Holland Fintech. We're an association of organizations that are active in financial innovation. We try to bring them together because we believe there's a really big importance of building a shared resource of knowledge, network, and work together with all the stakeholders like universities, regulators, policymakers, investors. So we're there to actually help you connect to all of them. It was about the same, yeah. All right. That said, now you know who we are. I'd like to talk a little bit about what happened up until December in the fintech field, just to give you a bit of a wrap up and make it easy for you to just sit back and relax and enjoy what happened in fintech without having to read all these newsletters. But of course, we encourage you to actually read them. Here, let me just shuffle the landscape a little bit. Sorry about that, because I continuously have to watch too much backwards. So what we see here actually, the European Committee has been really active in 2022 with new regulations. And one of the last ones they published or approved in December was DORA, which is the Digital Operational Resilience Act, which is about as much says at what is the infrastructure that financial products and services are running on, and can we actually guarantee their uptime? This is something that's really been debated a lot also, for example, in some Dutch media, because some policymakers are actually advocating that we should have paper alternative for everything that's digital. Well, I think you'll see that some of the solutions that you'll see here today, they're pretty much impossible to do on a paper basis, or at least not on an efficient way. So it's quite a challenge to see what will actually happen if you have to create a parallel universe which could, for example, operate without electricity. And I think especially now with the situation in Ukraine, we've been confronted with the fact that there actually might be a real case that we will have to do without electricity for a certain period. Well, you can then have your Apple Watch ready to make payments, but of course that's not going to work. So I think digital operational resilience, I think, is a first attempt to start thinking about the resilience that the whole payment and financial ecosystem has towards that. So from that perspective, from our perspective, quite an important piece of legislation. We saw some really nice acquisitions. It's also based on basically the less amount of funding that's available in the past year. We'll talk about that in a minute. We see that there's more room for M&A. Right? So financial investors like venture capital have less money available, so that means that usually valuations go down, and strategic buyers might actually take the opportunity to make acquisitions. We saw, for example, that BeFine was acquired by Ecology. We saw another one, where is it? Bucks made an acquisition in Spain, and Euroclear also made another acquisition of Goji. Right? So these are, I think, are all signs of prices becoming more attractive, where especially in 2021, prices went sky high. I mean, it was if you didn't become a unicorn with your funding round, it was pretty rare, right? Everyone became a unicorn all of a sudden. You hardly had to be able to do anything. In 2022, we've actually come to a more sanitized level of funding rounds, and also valuations were just a bit more modest. The expectation is also for the coming year that M&A will thrive, opposed to financial investors, as we see that there's still less money available in the market. Hong Kong and Singapore, and I think also a lot of other players also in Europe, are actually finding to be the most sustainable financial ecosystem. There's actually a group set up that was launched by Queen Maxima, which is a collaboration of central banks and other regulators across the world to collaborate on sustainability. And you see that, for example, financial hubs like Singapore and Hong Kong are really fighting to be the central place for these kind of activities to come together. Actually, the alternative finance one that's also focused on sustainable finance is based in Cambridge, and I think they're actually currently still having the best eyes. But if you, for example, look at the Singapore Fintech Festival last year, it was completely all about ESG and green finance. Buy now, pay later is very much scrutinized by the European Committee. You see that they launched a new consumer credit rule where they try to push back on buy now, pay later, because they fear that consumers generally don't have enough grip on their credits anymore, right? If it's so easy to just with one click go into credit and pay later for what you've bought, people see that there are actually a lot of consumers coming into trouble for that. And nonetheless, we still see, of course, new deals popping up, like MasterCard together with SoFi launching a new buy now, pay later product. We still think that actually there's a lot of room for buy now, pay later products, but we still should actually assess them like a credit, while currently they're a bit out of the credit system, and that's why these new regulations are actually quite needed to make sure that they fall under the same category as other consumer loans. What did I miss? We had some really nice bold statements about good investments. For example, Visa to invest 1 billion for investments in Africa. It's a booming market in Africa because the population is still very much growing, but the opportunities are very limited. But the expectation is that with the growing population, also the economy will grow, and Visa is jumping on the bandwagon there. And Barclays is making a similar statement about their climate tech investments. So they really make a bold statement about how in 2027 they want to make at least $500 million invested in climate tech, also known as clean tech, green tech, or whatever you want to call it. But quite interesting how I think a lot of financial firms are actually really sort of rebranding themselves as a ESG, sustainability-oriented player, because just doing payments is not good enough anymore. At least it's not very attractive to attract, for example, younger people in your staff. What else? Funding decreased quite a bit in 2021 with 41% in global fintech funding. And we had a Binance, well, of course, crypto has been pretty troublesome over the past year with FTX going bankrupt, and in the wake of that, quite some other players that were actually at the verge of falling over. For example, also the Dutch largest crypto trader is also currently in debate about whether they actually are getting the money back. They are still missing about 85 million euros. They're not sure whether they're actually going to get that back. So quite some challenge, I think, there, whether that's going to, what exactly the effects are going to be, and whether there's actually going to be consumer damage in wallets that people actually have crypto in. But there's a lot of debate, and we've seen, of course, that crypto prices have completely gone waste over the past year, dropping as much as 66% over from 1 January to 1 January. But nonetheless, there's still also activity going on. So Binance is actually launching a payments card with crypto in the US. So you actually still see that there's crypto adoption at the same time going on as well, which is quite interesting, I think. So what happened with regard to investments? We saw the largest funding round was 400 million by Viva Republica. Novicap backed 200 million, and Daitaku built and Alika. Only 2 of them were based out of Europe, 1 in Asia and 2 out of the US. And I think this kind of structures as well how we see normally that the deals have been going over 22. In the Dutch market, we saw Muse and Alicia getting a funding round. Quite some nice rounds. Actually, well, for the rest, December was relatively quiet. And here you see the biggest funding rounds in 2022 in fintech, with Molly winning it after that Mambu, Bank, Bucks, and Friss doing a very nice funding round, which altogether, if you just imagine that about 5 years ago, an average investment year in fintech in the Netherlands was about 200 million euros. Right? So if you compare that to these amounts that just were invested in 22, you see that that's actually quite still on the high side of investments. Then what we saw on the investment level globally, this is total tech investment, so everything that went into startups, we saw that there was quite a strong decline across 22, every quarter going down slightly. And we saw that most of the investments were still being done in the US. After that, Asia and Europe is falling a bit behind if we go to general tech. That has a lot to do with the way capital is structured also in these markets, right? So European venture capital is generally, as a whole market, just not so mature as we see, for example, in the US. Well, the number of deals pretty much dropped if you look at the Dutch market, right? So we saw here very much outliers in 21 with 2 really massive quarters in 21. Actually, across 22, we didn't see a very big drop. So we also are expecting it to relatively stabilize now with regard to the level of investments, but still doing pretty well over the whole year. And that's all in total investments. This is for fintech globally. There we see as well that we see a pretty much a similar pattern as in general tech, but if we translate that into European, we actually see that Europe is doing much better with regard to fintech compared to general tech, if you look at investments, right? It's much more at par with Asia and the US if you look at where the investments are going. And then if we look at the total deal size, I think that's also interesting to see, and I think that kind of reflects a bit the market. Right, we saw that the average deal size dropped already quite a bit after a bit of a funny outlier actually in 21. It normalized a bit more towards an average, and the same actually goes also for the median deal. And I think also the difference between the median and the average already shows that there's a lot of very big funding rounds that sort of distort the average of the funding round. But if you look at sort of the median, which is like the middle of all the deals that were done, with an average of about 4 million, that's quite normal with regard to venture capital. Yeah, I'd like to wrap up the monthly recap. I'm not sure if there are any questions at the moment. I hope it was satisfactory and, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
You mentioned the largest Dutch crypto exchange and how it was worried about getting its money back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that you mentioned the name.
Bitfavo.
Bit what?
Bitfavo.
Bitfavo.
Yeah, no, sorry, I didn't mention it, but it was Bitfavo.
Yes.
They're a renowned football sponsor as well, so you'll see the brand everywhere. I think they have like 1 million users, according to their own statements. Yeah, but they also have made statements that they will cover all the costs, and so there's nothing to worry about with regard to that. But they're in the newspaper quite a bit for their.
In today's Washington Post, they claim that they've recovered $5 billion already
from FTX. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I read as well.
So that's maybe half of what was lost or a little less.
I think the challenge for Bitfavo is that they're in battle with the Winklevoss brothers about who gets their money first. So then the question is who's I think the guys from Winklevoss are a bit closer to the source than the guys here in the Netherlands. But, who knows? Any other questions? Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. And again, of course, if you want to read up on this news on a weekly basis, sign up for the newsletter on hollandfintech.com. And I'll leave it at that. And I think, Roman, where are you? Yeah. Looking forward to hear from you from Payhawk. Let's give Roman a big hand, everyone. Let's warm him up a bit. Yes. That's more like it. Yeah, if you click. Yeah.
So thank you all for being here. My name is Roman Morel. I am an account executive actually at Payhawk. I don't know how to use. Okay, sorry. We're very technical normally. Yeah, so talking about Payhawk, a little bit on the agenda today. It's not working. Okay, never mind. The agenda for today is going to be as follows. We talk a little bit about the history, then about the challenges in the market, and then the Payhawk solution as a whole. As you could see here already, it's... What are you doing? Okay, sorry. So yeah, the history of Payhawk. We were founded in 2018 in Bulgaria by 3 people, our current CEO, CFO and CTO. And initially we were participating in the Visa Innovation Program, and from there actually they developed the software of Payhawk to help businesses solve challenges in the way that they are spending in terms of company spend. The problem with that is that typically businesses usually have to spend, and people are using their own money, they're paying out of pocket, they're using different systems to do that, and those systems often don't communicate together. So financials have a hard time to actually get a clear picture of what has gone out of the organization. So when we're bringing Payhawk to the market, we're actually looking to integrate the cards that you're using to make the payment with the software that you're using to make the expense, right? So at the moment that an employee goes for travel to, let's say, the UK and needs to stay in a hotel, books a taxi, goes out for a lunch or a dinner with a client, they use the Payhawk card to make the payment. And once the payment... Okay. Once the payment has been made, automatically the system recognizes the payment with the actual receipt that will be asked in the workflow. So a lot of the common use cases exist when companies have people that need to travel for business, but also working remote, which has increased over time now with the COVID, of course. Online spend, managing those cards, and also providing scalability for organizations that want to scale not just in the Netherlands, but outside. That's what Payhawk tries to support as an organization. And how we're doing that is we're connecting the actual bank account of companies with the platform. So inside of Payhawk, you will get your own wallet from which you can which you deposit funds. And those funds will be used to then make the payments at any given terminal or when you're going out for lunches, etc. In the software of Payhawk, you build then controls, and those controls are actually managing what employees can spend on those cards. So they're proactive controls that say each transaction that you make with your Payhawk card can only be 100 euros at a time. So you cannot go out and buy a new MacBook with your company card, right? That is how we're trying to control those expenses that the employees are making for the business. And then we auto-reconcile those also against the receipt images. So it's going to be a completely automated flow from the moment when the employee is buying something all the way down until the moment that finance needs to look at what has been done by our team. And it will be kind of like as follows, where you're going to go take a taxi, you get a notification on your phone, you take a picture of the receipt, and then at that moment, you don't have to do anything anymore. And in a historic or in a more traditional way, often what happens is that at the end of the month, employees would come with a package of receipts, throw them at the desk of the finance team, and then they have to, find a way. They get a credit statement, and often that is, leading to a lot of time, and actually some expenses will never be accounted for. So that is the problem we're trying to solve at Payhawk. I see that we're at the time, so I'm just gonna go to the questions if there are any.
Thank you, Roman. You can take a little bit more time because you went through all the slides a couple of times.
Yeah.
Are there any questions at the moment for Roman already? What I'm curious about is where do you see that this is going from here, right? So I think this is a big leap from the just taking pictures of your receipt and having credit card management on that side and all your data on the other side and trying to have to mix that all together. I think you're doing a big job there to make life easier for entrepreneurs, CFOs. But sort of where do you see this as a next step? Do you think that credit should be applied to this, or does this go to full mobility use, or what kind of directions do you see this expanding?
I think the way it is expanding is we already offer credit as well, so companies can use the card based on credit rating. But where I see it going is that companies in the future will start providing cards for all of the employees, and they will manage those cards with policies according to seniority of those employees. And the advantage with that, of course, is that finance will no longer have to be involved as much as before, because you manage the controls on the cards up front. Yep. So yeah, the spending behavior of the employees will therefore be always in line with company policy.
And do you see also, for example, that cards could then be mixed with access cards, transport, or other basically identification modes that are required?
The cards can already be used for certain types of transport as well. So it's just a normal credit card. Of course, in the UK, you can use it to go on the
Oyster,
tube and in the bus. I think for the Netherlands, I would see more beneficial that we get rid of the OV chip card and use our bank cards there as well, because that's a more international standard.
You can now, absolutely.
Yeah, it just started indeed with this past year they started the test for that. Yeah.
But that's only in Amsterdam, right?
Not everywhere yet, but much of it.
No, it's also in Groningen.
Okay.
We have some practical evidence here. Yeah. Any other samples? Soon everywhere. Yeah, it's coming, right? Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately you'll create the perfect card for any type of need, whether that is paying for your transport or paying for your meal.
And do you see still a lot of preference still for actual physical cards, or is virtual cards becoming more the norm?
Virtual cards is definitely becoming more the norm, because I have the physical card and the virtual card, and everyone who has an Apple Pay will use that and leave the card at home. I often leave my wallet at home these days, and most of the customers that we speak with, they also prefer the virtual cards over the physical cards. Yeah. So I imagine that is going to change also, because now sometimes the physical card is still needed when you go make a booking at a hotel. Sometimes they want to have a physical card, but in the future, everything is digitizing, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah, Michael.
First of all, let me put in a word for the OV chip card, especially the anonymous type.
Yeah.
Some of us like it because some of us think it's no one's business other than oneself as a girl that travels. Right? I mean, my actual question is that you talked about using your card, that okay, you can put money in and then use the card, and immediately I thought, no, I'm not going to put money in. This is a company card. Wait, a company puts money in. But then you talked about going on and having lunch and that sort of thing. I thought, well, wait a second. I should probably pay for lunch myself. So the point, obviously, are there provisions for separate money pools? You know, that my private money for what I buy privately, and then the company money for what the company pays for, or is it just the company?
It would be a company, as the company funds would be on the platform. So you would not use it with your own personal funds. If you want to make a payment with your own credit card or with your own cash, you could do so, and then you can put into the software that this was an out-of-pocket expense, and then you can, via that way, you can also ask for a reimbursement to your employer. But obviously, the innovation at this point is coming from integrating cards and introducing policies and control mechanisms at the card level, which is something that you don't get with your traditional bank from ING or ABN AMRO. And this is where the tipping point is, where a lot of businesses now are actually saying, we want to bring that management of cards internally, so that we have control on when do we issue a new card, and how are those cards then being used.
Cool. I think that's wrapped it up. Let's give Roman a very big hand. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thanks. Yes. Yeah, sorry, just one intermediate before. No, you can stay here. No worries. But please, I'd like everyone to pull out their phone to actually scan this QR code or go to menti.com and fill out the code 68027307 because then you can tell us what you thought of Roman's story, and that will help us add everything up at the end and come up with a nice present for the one that you rated as best today. I hope that all works. Just checking in. Yeah, everyone managed to get it. Yeah, seems like it works. And then we can go to you, John. Here you go.
Thank you, Don.
Let's give John a very big hand. Enjoy.
The tallest presenter today, so if you want to put a vote in for me, I'm happy with that. There's two of us talking about fraud prevention today, and I think it's really essential we listen. Why? Around about 3 to 6% of all GDP is lost to fraud in every country globally, worldwide. It's huge. And you know what? Through COVID, we saw a nice, even if you look at the worst surveys, 20% increases left, right, and centre. There's an expression I seem to hear all the time, a side hustle. Have you got a side hustle? When did we get to a society that accepts illegality and criminality? Okay, so I'm saying we've got an issue. It's an issue you can tackle, and the way you do that is defend. It's the only way to keep yourself safe. So, what do we set about? Our founders were running e-com businesses, and they really couldn't find solutions that played to them. Why? You say no to a customer. You've lost a good customer, they never come back again. So you should say yes when you are able to say yes. But equally, you need to say no when you know you've got a fraud. And they found that generic solutions weren't hitting it for their business. So they went away. This wonderful world of AI, deep learning, and thank God for Amazon, that's all I can say. It wasn't enough just to give a decision, though. We need to make sure a business can manage the fraud. So we have workflows, we have work queues, we have users, we have reports, all the ancillary bits that help you as a business control that front door. And the overall objective is solely to accelerate growth, because I tell you, if you get burnt by a regulatory fine or you get burnt by extensive fraud, your boardroom will not be bullish about going into that new product, that new venture, that new geography. It's really important that you take confidence in what you do to be able to drive your business forward. They asked for a case study. Everything you see on our website talks about precision, and that strive to get to the best possible solution. Even our ML takes multiple different algorithms to come up with a solution. And I'll say it. If I go to a doctor, the doctor says, I've done a test, you're 80% likely to die in the next 3 months, I'm straight to the next doctor because I've got a 20% chance of living. So it's exactly how the algorithms work, and we jack our between them. So what this says, a bank, 400% fraud catch increase, but less work, less false positives, less investigations, and that is what we try to achieve for our customers. Gives you confidence. Now, I'm not going to go through all this. I've got 1 minute 58 seconds to do this. It's not enough for me to do the dance that I promised. We have heaps of technology. It's all in the Amazon cloud. It all sits there. It works hyper fast. We're giving 200 millisecond responses here to extensive data inquiries. We're plugged in to over 35 different other providers that give us those little nuggets and signals of information that our clients need to either authenticate or react or spot fraud. Some of our clients, where's Laura? Some of our clients, you'll notice some are local. We are very much a global company. We are mirroring what Don said about Africa. Africa's just on fire at the moment. There's so much coming out there. There used to be where all the fraud happened. I think we've learned a little bit from that low start. We're AWS partners. You can buy us on AWS. KPMG look after us, and some of those names will resonate further east you go. I've got 50 seconds left. I've blown it. Now I have to do my dance, don't I? No, I won't torture you with that. So what are we doing? I am relatively new to fraud.net. I'm 4.5 months in. I've spent the last 25 years solving fraud issues for customers. To take this on now and drive it with the latest and the greatest technology really gets me going. So I'm looking forward to speaking to you all and seeing if we can help you solve your issues, give that confidence to the boardroom. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. Well done. I think it's quite an interesting one, and I think for us been quite a challenge, especially over the past years, where people were much more remote and having much more trust issues as well online. Are there some specific things that sort of surprised you in sort of the really bold frauds that you'd like, how did they get away with this so far, for example?
Really bold frauds. A lot of them are chances, but it's very organised, and one of the things that does shock me, get on TikTok, go and have a look at UK clickers, go and have a look at money mules. They're all there. The intelligence is there, the networks are there, the people that will give you support. And we talk about organised crime being more than two people collaborating in a crime. I don't think there's many frauds without two people involved in them these days.
So it's a bit like you've got banking as a service, you've got also FAS, right?
Yeah. In dark web, you've got software as a service for the cyber crimes. You've got run books and for fraudsters to follow a process to get round your safeguards. And I guarantee if they crack it once, they go like that. It speeds up in velocity. It's an exciting job. And certainly if anyone's in that fraud analyst piece, I think it's a great job to be in.
Yeah.
You must do it all the time.
How do you deal with, so even for global banks, they have different business rules that within the regions or even the countries, they're totally dissimilar. So there's not like, they have global mandates, but there's a lot of difference between the regions as well.
Absolutely.
How do you work around those kind of business rules?
So the business rules can segment, so you can take a business rule, take a country, write business rules applicable to that country. So fully able to represent a region, a particular need. One of the big ones is money laundering. There's a lot of money laundering. Doing transaction monitoring, you might as well do your money laundering screening there. And hard rules for each country, for each regulator, for each license you go under. So the software is perfectly capable of recognising the data and running the...
Right. But at some point you want to sort of move away from the business rules and bring it into the ML space, right? So meaning that the more business rules we set up, and every year they're adding about 10 to 100 new rules for new types of transaction behaviors that they've seen, right? So how do you move away from that, start putting these rules into really an ML space whereby when a new fraud pattern comes up, it gets mapped to something that's already existing? So
one would hope that that's constantly being reviewed. We've got algorithms that look our algorithms for drift and degradation, and that's really where we trigger and say, hold on, we need to retrain here. We're missing something. So yeah, I get that. There is a constant evolution. You cannot leave your algorithm static forever. They just will degrade and drift.
Yep.
yeah, it's not an easy one to solve.
Any other questions for John at the moment? Just one question I still have is I think there's, at this level, I think it's built a bit on what you were asking, is there's actually quite a large demand for knowledge sharing, I think, across firms, right?
Yeah.
And that's because you can't just solve everything with the tools box. There's a lot of things that you have to operationally get in place to actually get it right. Mm-hmm. How do you see that evolving, right? So do you see that
data sharing?
Exactly. So do you see that the communities are actually active enough to and open enough to support each other actually in tackling this common enemy, basically?
That's a really interesting question, Don, and there's 1,000,001 ways to answer it. So if you look at something like CIFAS in the UK, Credit Information Fraud Avoidance System, used to be called the first sort of PII sharing network for fraud in the finance industry. They've got a high burden of proof. So if it's on file there, they know this is a fraud. It's a fraud that could be presented to a court, and that's beautiful. But of course, that doesn't happen every time. If you've got a chancer that fails KYC, their face is wrong to their passport, you're not going to report it to CIFAS. You're not going to feel that that's got this high burden of proof. So that needs to go somewhere. But it needs to be weighted. And just because someone commits fraud on one area and that's reported, does that actually reflect on their behavior when they come to another area of their life? So there's a way, we do data sharing, we do it in a completely salted and encoded way, so there's no PII in it. It stays within region. Sorry, yeah, personal information. And we look for those reports, but it's very much in the algorithms and the machine learning to understand if that is important to our particular client.
Yep. Okay.
So we can crack it. I'd like to say we'd get to a stage, and particularly across big regions, where we can actually share those hard frauds like CIFAS. It's massively important,
yep.
But equally we need this this more anonymous soup of data to
no, exactly, but it's also, I think, an invitation as well, for example, within the networks of Holland Fintech, for example, where we also facilitate just sharing experiences, right? So what do you use for tools? What kind of, how do you measure that? How do you deal with these policies, right? So how do you explain this to the regulator? These kind of conversations, I think, are also quite important to have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the using machine learning, you need to white box it. You need a explainability graph.
Exactly.
So.
Great.
Good.
Well,
Thank
let's
you,
give John a big hand, everyone.
Thank you.
And of course, with that hand, also support him with scanning the QR code and giving him a rating for his
Put it on
presentation.
my belt.
You ready, Gadi?
Yeah, I will. That's a hard act to count on. Very good.
You'll be good. You'll be good.
No worries. Everybody, you set the stage for me very well. You wouldn't talk about the problem.
No, exactly. Here
Thank
go.
you.
Good luck. Let's give Gadi a big hand, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. So I work for Fraudio. Much like my friend here, we also fight this growing plague of fraud. And we primarily focus on servicing merchant acquirers, PayFacs, and issuers. And what we do is we originally came from an acquirer here in the Netherlands. And I think much like your founders, we were really frustrated with how we were served, and we're forced to kind of create our own models. But while doing that, we figured out a different way of doing things. And in essence, we patented what were considered to be the third generation of fraud detection really quickly. So the first generation would be the rule-based systems. Been around for a good 25 years, very effective, but has its challenges. Second generation is when AI and machine learning kind of joined in, usually combined with rules and in a very segmented way. So utilizing a customer's data to serve that particular customer. What we've done that's a little bit different is we've basically combined all our customers' data into one major pool. So we map our customers' data into our own data schema. We then add it into one homogeneous data set, combining issuing and acquiring, enabling us to see the complete view of the universe. And then we segment the data in verticals of MCC industry codes, locations, and channel. In essence, already setting up that differences between gambling, e-coms transaction in Malta and a POS transaction in a supermarket in France, right? Very different interactions. We have several models, AI models actually operating per segment, and this is about the complexity of being able to constantly change and retrain behaviors, because fraudsters don't have the red tape that we have. They have extremely good communication between them. They constantly share best practices. Of course, businesses never do this, right? We don't tell our competitor, hey, this is a great way to make money. And to battle that, you really constantly need to be nimble and change and get data from anywhere you can. and benefit everyone in a consortium. Lastly, and I think this is really I would say the secret sauce, is the ability to contextualize transactions in real time. And what does that mean? So being able to, in real time, to look at the interaction of a card and a merchant, of a card and that type of merchant, the last 10 transactions, the last transactions in 10 minutes, 5 days, 50 days, doing that, all these very complex calculations in real time to provide our customers with the most accurate score. Now, I say accurate because, you know, stopping fraud is a part of business, sadly. But each merchant, each acquirer, each, well, issuers actually are very different in that way, but everybody has a different fraud appetite, right? If I'm selling TVs, one fraud is enough for me. I need to sell 100 TVs to make up that money, as opposed to selling a game online, right? I want the volume. So it's about being accurate and being able to stop as much as possible with paying the price that is acceptable to that particular customer, and being able to segment and give that personalization. The result is just an easier way for everybody to work together. Of course, everything is nimble. Integrations, our last integration was 4.5 days, which is fairly unheard of. And we primarily, I know this is very heavy on text, but we primarily serve in various ways our customers. I think the one main differentiator that I have a half a second to talk about is the merchant-initiated fraud, looking at fraudsters who actually open merchant accounts to create fraud on their own account. That's it. That's my time's up, so I can keep going. Thank you.
Well done. I could, of course, ask by what did you miss to tell us just now in the final seconds? But
What did I miss to tell you about the final second?
I'm a bit curious about this double-edged sword, what you were just talking about, in the sense that you're not just looking at users that are actually committing fraud, but you're actually looking also at potential customers that are committing fraud, right?
Yes, correct.
How is that evolving? Because I think that's quite a challenge as well for a lot of consumers that are actually out there and get confronted with. There's quite a lot of fraudulent merchants around, or parties pretending to be a merchant. How do you see that evolve at the moment?
I actually think this is one of the biggest issues, especially plaguing the acquiring side. And just think of the business case, right? So if I'm a fraudster, we're talking organizations. I need a business plan to figure out why I'm going to commit fraud in your store, how I'm going to get it delivered, and then I'm going to sell it to make money, right? In the end of the day, that's the whole process. It's not easy. Isn't it a lot easier to go to your acquiring business, tell you I just sell t-shirts, go through the easiest onboarding process, boom, I have stolen cards, process it in my own store, and by the time you figure it out, the acquirer is up for it. The regulator is still not really worried about it because the acquirer is paying. The consumer is okay. So this is a big problem.
Yep.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, to a certain extent.
So I see a big side of that going. And then maybe on the issuing side, I think it's the opposite. The problem is not fraud, the problem is blocking good transactions.
Yep.
How much money does our former Payhawk speaker, how much money do they pay to actually get me to use a card, right? Now, what if they block that transaction? It gets blocked 3-4 times. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to another one.
Yep.
Because we're as consumers, there's options today, right? There's so many options.
And we're pretty impatient.
Right.
Yep.
So what does that cost? So if on the acquiring side, the precision is very different. It's like, I do not want to bother my customer with 3DS when he's going to the same store that he always goes to.
Yeah.
Right? We know, so. Yeah.
Clear. Any questions from the room? Yeah, Michael.
At one point in your presentation, you talked about contrasting with playing a game online or something, and I thought to myself, Fraudio, that's a good name for playing a game online. On the other hand, Fraudio in this context, Fraudio is something I would think to hear in a Jimmy Fallon skit or something. I know it's a bit late, but my question then is, the name of your firm, doesn't it trivialize and humor and give the impression that fraud, in fact, is not all that serious a problem by its very nature? Maybe I'm wrong, and people can tell me I'm wrong, but I hear fraudio, and I think that's Jimmy Fallon riffing on fraudio. It's a silly name. So
I don't know. It's the first time I hear this. I think it's really it's an interesting prospect. In my mind, it was very technical, fraud.io, but just fraudio. I can see the humor in it. I think that it's if fraud had happened to you, it's very painful. So maybe a little humor is needed. I don't know. And if Jimmy Fallon said anything about fraud,
you're the
I'm so
sales
upset.
guy, right? So I especially want to tell you that.
No, but I love it. I'll make a Jimmy Fallon joke.
I think you actually find here, Michael, as well, that in Europe we actually do use a different kind of English than they use in the US or in the UK, right? So we actually have our own English here, where we very often miss these kind of little things where you might interpret things. If you know the language very well, we're on a more superficial level, I'm afraid.
No, but I really welcome the observation. It's good. It's always good to understand how we're being perceived by the name. Yeah.
How soon can you clean up Facebook?
Sorry?
Facebook Marketplace. How soon can you clean them up?
How soon can I clean them up? It's not about cleaning them up. It's about what's that? Craigslist is a whole different beast, I would say. Yeah.
AGM States.
But it's interesting, right? I think that's what I'm also interested about is whether we see the responsibility has been very much pushed towards the financial industry until now. But I think it's not maintainable in the long run. I think you'll have to look at more distributed responsibility for this challenge, right? And when you talk about fraudsters advertising on Facebook, there's no way the financial industry could get their hands on that. So you will have to bring in these channels as well at some point to fight fraud at an earlier stage than try to fix it afterwards when the transaction has happened, right? So I think that's
I mean, listen, fraud is a big word. There's so many different types of fraud and ways we can fight certain things. The only advice I would tell anybody over here in this room, if you're buying stuff online, use a credit card. Really, use a credit card. It is so much more protected, because if for some reason I, get you to send me money, that's on you. And maybe you'll get it back, maybe you won't, but that's where responsibility is a big deal. And as hard and difficult Visa, MasterCard, Amex can be to work with and to set our lives and all that, they actually offer us, a consumer, a lot of protection. And this is something that, just going back to what you say, that's why we pay them that percentage in the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The person buying the audio services or audio services have to take. If I'm using Fraud.io, does it have my insurance premium for library insurance?
If you're an acquirer, yeah. I don't serve consumers or.
No, not consumers.
Yeah.
Consumers are under the Consumer Protection Act, right? So
correct. No, but I don't also serve merchants really. So I really am looking at the payment industry. And this is also a strategic choice, because my clients have hundreds of thousands of merchants, and thus I have a lot of data to bring value to more merchants, as opposed to if I sign with a merchant, okay, I have your data, but that's fairly limited actually. Does that kind of answer your question?
I would advise you to take the rest during a drink later on.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Because we have to wrap it up. Let's give Gadi a very big hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And of course, put boter by the vis and scan the QR code and give him a rating. And then we'll go to our Kahoot quiz afterwards. So keep your phone out. Don't put it away. You'll need it immediately after. Oh, this is Kahoot already. Did we have to? Oh yeah. Did everyone get the Menti first, just to check? Yeah. Then this is indeed for Kahoot to actually be able to do the quiz, or you could go to use the Kahoot app and use the PIN or scan the QR code. And the game PIN is 677640 if you have to use it manually. Yeah, you'll be able to scan it also here. Just switch screens here. Yes, there's the QR code as well. Hope everyone managed to get in. We got a creative crowd today. All right, let's see. I think a couple more will be coming in. Did everyone manage to scan and get on board? I see someone there. For the rest, I think everyone's... Yes, it looks like everyone's getting ready. All right, let's get it started. You there? All right. Here we go. So we're looking back at especially fintech news from the past month, right? So you probably recognize some of the things that we were talking about before, like for example, who is MasterCard's next partner for a push for buy now, pay later? Was that Adyen, Klarna, SoFi, or Funding Circle? Which company is working together with MasterCard for the next buy now, pay later scheme? And so you have to press the color with response to the color on the slide. So red for Adyen, yellow for Klarna, blue for SoFi, or green for Funding Circle, and in this case it was blue SoFi. Then we get leaderboard. Josh, sharp, very good. I'm glad you still have to pitch. I'm glad you're still on your game. Retail brokerage firm 99 was acquired by Bucks, Bots, Bank, or Buck. Red for Bucks, yellow for Bank, blue for Bots, and green for Buckaroo. Which B acquired 99? Yes, I'm glad you all most of you paid attention. It was Bucks, the neo broker here from Amsterdam, that made that acquisition. Doing nicely, Martijn? Yeah, indeed. Still a couple of questions to go. What drop did Ethereum make in 2022? Was that 44%, 55%, 66%, or 77% in the past year? Always nice to see if you got your orders of magnitude. They're already a little bit on the rise actually in 23. And you got most of you got that correct. It was about 66% drop in euro pricing for Ethereum. Quite a bit. Josh still going strong, but Monty Python is closing in. Let's see, which company stated that they will invest about 1 billion in Africa to look at the digital payments boom there? Is that JP Morgan Chase, MasterCard, Visa, or PayPal? This should not be so hard, I guess. Which company committed to invest 1 billion up until 2027? And that's, oh, my bad, I think. That's Visa, as most of you got correct. Very nicely done. Not a big shake-up right now. Too easy question. Let's see, we get a couple of harder ones coming up. By how much did the funding in the fintech sector drop? Was that 74%, 41%, 58%, or 36%? So by how much did fintech investment drop in 22 compared to 21? Well done, that was tight, but indeed it was 41 was the winner. Let's see if that created any changes here. No, Monty Python and Jazz going strong, but a couple of questions to go. Anything can change. What does DORA stand for? The Explorer, obviously, the Digital Operational Resilience Act, Digital Onboarding Review Act, or the Dual Operational Repair Act? What does DORA stand for? Yes, most of you got that correct. I was expecting some red answers, but no, well done. Not much happening here. I think we got a really strong leaderboard here, but let's see what happens next. Which company sounded the alarm bells in the wake of the FTX collapse? Was that Gemini, Galapagos, GoDaddy, or Genesis? I think this might be a bit of a tougher one for you, as the ones that are resembled are also closely related. It was Genesis, and indeed Gemini is the vehicle by the Winklevoss brothers that also invested in Genesis and is in debate with, for example, Bitfavo on actually retrieving money back from Genesis from this deal. It was a bit tougher. Let's see, any changes here? No, the leaderboard is still very strong. Which Dutch fintech company received the biggest funding round in 22? Was that Bax, Mambu, Bank, or Molly? Final question. Curious to see if that made any changes to the leaderboard. I think we got the answers in. It was Molly indeed. Most of you got that right, so well done. Well done. Let's see what happens next to the final leaderboard. We're already there. So, what does the podium look like? At number 3, we see DJ. Well done. Where are you, DJ? Yeah, oh yeah, there, well done. Monty Python, number 2. Where's Monty Python? And number 1, I guess we're going to see him on stage later. Josh, well done, congratulations. Well done. We got already a small prize for you. Here you go. We got already a small one for you, and hope you enjoy it.
Yes.
I'm glad that you read all our newsletters and know all about this, so thanks, well done. And of course, the rest of the leaderboard also well done. I think there was a lot of fintech knowledge in the room today, so great. Thanks. I hope you still enjoyed having a bit of fun here. So let's indeed give Josh a big hand, everyone. I hope everyone in the bar can still maintain themselves a little bit. We have 2 more pitches to go, and then we'll wrap it up, and we'll all go to drinks. And then we've got Oscar. Where are? Oh yeah, you're standing by. Here's the clicker. Let's give Oscar a big hand, everyone, and let's hear about Pensify.
Alright, thank you very much. I'll take time, 5 minutes to explain the most boring but very important topic of today, retirements. So, first of all, Pensify is a very early stage startup. We started 6 months ago. So I'll turn, instead of talking about the product, I'll just tell you a little bit of a story of how we started, who we are, and to make you realize what kind of big of a problem we are actually solving. So we started a year ago because, quite frankly, my parents, they have their own SME company in the Netherlands, and they went broke, and there was no retirement for everyone who worked there. Well, luckily there were only 8 people, they're a very, very small company. However, with my financial background, we tried to figure out what went wrong, because in the Netherlands we think we have the best pension system in the world, yet many people are not aligned, and they were 50 plus and still have very big problems. Afterwards we thought, imagine how this would feel if you're an international company in Europe and you have to set up a pension for several employees, and you're in Germany but you have Spanish colleagues, you don't speak the language, it's a very boring problem, you're not financially educated. Well, I think you'll know where I'm getting with this. So that's why we came up with Pensify, and we will start in a couple of months in the Netherlands, and we will go to Europe in 5 countries come January, and we are currently fundraising. Sorry I have to say that, but that's why I'm here. No, this is our team, so I'm the one on top. Benjamin will join us later for the drinks. That's his specialty, so he'll tell you all about it. And the other 2 guys, we have a former of Brand New Day, is our CTO. He was one of the founders there, which the Dutch people might know is a leading company in the Netherlands for pension related. He built the pension tech software there. And Dennis, our product owner, so he is he was responsible for the Giro, which is the Dutch online brokerage firm, now part of Flatex, due to a merger 2 years ago, and he's building out the product for which we can go live in a couple of countries hopefully come Christmas. And we have an advisory team, so obviously in the pension-related world, there's the second pillar. I won't bore you with the details in the product, but we thought we needed some advice, so we have a current PGGM board member advising us, and those two gentlemen as well, because for an entrepreneur, there's nothing more exhausting or time administrative to set up your pension for your team. So we enlisted these two gentlemen, former financial authorities conductors, and a professor to help us set up this pension scheme in the Netherlands first and in Europe second. The problem, I just described to you a little bit already, but imagine you have your own, most of you probably, or some of you will have your own business with, let's say, with fewer than 50 employees, as most businesses do. You're in multiple countries, you have to set up a pension because people are nagging you for it, and you won't feel the urgency, and at some point you will have to do so, and then you will have to go to an advisor, and well, I can go on, but I'm pretty sure I'll bore you pretty quickly. So the problem is that it's all an administrative and burdensome project for the entrepreneur, and you will see that the complexity is high, and there's a high upfront cost, usually by pension advisors. But also by looking up what are the right deals for you. You have to be financially literate, etc. And that's why we will disrupt the entire industry in Europe for all these people that you will see here next year. And these are the advantages that we want to go for. So we finished our MVP. We are building our app, which will be right in the hands of employees, expats, and also freelancers in the first, as I said, 5 European countries next year. And we will help them by installing as many integrations with financial providers as we can, and also embedding our solution into local banks. And we have partnerships with one of the largest investment banks, an American investment bank, as well as a few payroll integrators, such as Personio in the space, a main competitor of Personio. So, without yet telling the strategy, I would love to tell you a bit more about that in person, but via these integrations, we will reach the employee or the freelancer or an expat directly within a few minutes. The employer sets up the scheme, and you will be notified that your employer has set up a pension. This way, the employer has to barely act upon this task, and the employees will receive their implementation, and that you will receive the contributions from your employers straight away when you sign up for the company. That's how we would like to tackle the boring aspect of the pension scheme. So there's a quick onboarding, and we're European, and we will also educate you via the app. And as I see that my time is done now, so this is our progression. We will go live soon, and if you would like to talk more, then happy to do so at the bar at the end. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well done. Yeah, you guys come in. Go on, take a seat. All right, now I think a really nice presentation. I'd like to know a little bit more. I think so. There's a couple of things towards pensions, right? On one is you've got the administrative side towards the employer and the employee, and you've got the investment side. How are you going to erase the investment side? Are you going to work with existing funds that you just invest in, or work with a partner for that? What's the first setup there?
What do you mean with erase? You mean we will outsource all the financial. We will build the integrations. We will build the app, and we will build the sort of, let's put it this way, the freeway or the highway from start to reach the employers and the expats.
Okay.
And we already have a partner lined up to do the asset management as well as the custodian part. And in time we will obviously cut out the custodian, do that in-house, and we have the knowledge for that via two of my co-founders and the first employees coming on board. June 20.
So if I make a bit of a pun here, it's the Payhawk for pensions. Right? Right? It's
could be. Who knows?
I mean, you basically take care of all the administrative hassle around it and make it easy. Okay, really nice. Any questions from the room so far? Yeah, Michael, go ahead. Others are also allowed to ask questions, just to be sure. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we'll get you first. Yeah.
So you will define contribution then?
Yes. It's a third pillar. It's a private product, so it's defined contribution exactly. Yeah. But it's not a PPI. It will be the PEP, if you're familiar with that.
The European
exactly.
private pension.
Yeah. It just came into regulation in March last year. So we will hopefully be the first Western European.
Nice. No, I think there was already one licensed, I thought.
Yes.
There was.
Slovakia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because we set up a business about 18 months ago. We have 100 people and we've had to go through the exact journey you talked about. Picking up, we're a UK business, but just launched in the Netherlands. Picking up pension regulation here is so complex. It's one of the biggest headaches that we actually have to deal with. And one of those things you don't want to worry about, you want to be focusing about the market and selling. That onboarding bit you talked about, how are you going to help the entrepreneur or the business understand the complexity of new country regulation? Because to me that was a real headache.
Yes. Well, it's a good question. That also combines with the tax regulation part, as I said. So we will, first of all, the employer onboards, and we are now actually setting out via an accountancy agency to get all the fiscal regulations and all the local sort of legal part and compliance. So we will do that in-house, because that is mainly, you're right, that's mainly the value, right? So we will provide that instantly to the employer via the app, and per country to the employees that are located there.
That's the interest, because a lot of what you put up there, I know it's 5 minutes, is about the employee, the service to the employees, so they can see how they manage their pension. For the person you're actually selling to, the business you're going to sell to the entrepreneur, the CEO, the CFO, making my life easy, setting all this up is a real thing I want to know about.
Yeah.
But it looks really, it's a big problem. 6
Exactly.
months to get to that, it's a really cool idea.
I'll explain at the bar later how we'll do that. But for the employer, we did 10 minutes. That's our own deadline, and we're on track to make that deadline. Yeah.
Sounds good. Michael, do you still have a question? Yeah.
Sure. Brand New Day, are they your competitor, or if not, what is the difference?
Yes, but they will remain in the Dutch market. Also, they are direct to consumer, and we will employ a B2B2C strategy. Furthermore, then we will have embedded solutions in place and work with international asset managers, and they are a Dutch bank basically now. So here I do think so, but we will hopefully quickly leave the Netherlands, because here almost 90% of the employees in the Netherlands have also obliged pensions and are not willing to save additionally. So Brand New Day, I think for Dutch market, yes.
I think there are also in the Dutch market, there's still room to grow if you can circumvent the complexity, because it's just too much hassle and too little gain for people to do private saving.
Exactly, there's still 1 million workers without a pension who work in SME companies, and it's growing in the Netherlands.
Yeah. And so do you see, for example, I'm curious, because you need the Dutch pension system overhaul, but that's something else, right? So if you especially mix internationally, but what do you think about, for example, collaborating with parties like remote.com, that are actually sort of sparking let's say, enabling everyone to work already with local regulation with regard to employment? Do you see this as a big add-on, for example, to their services?
Well, I think it's a good question, because not remote, but one of their competitors, we are in advanced talks, and also with some of the payrolling competitors to be their European pension sort of for their clients. Exactly, so that will be part of the strategy.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart one. So,
yeah.
Cool. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Are we okay? Let's give him a big hand, everyone. Thank you. Well, yeah, thanks, Oscar. And then Yash, did everyone rate Oscar, by the way? Let's not forget about that, right? Not too fast. Did everyone push out their Menti and did the voting? Just double check. We don't want to get sloppy towards the end. And then we get Yash, of course. Get ready. You're already in a winning mood, so let's see what you can do next. Let's see. Yes. Here you go, here's the clicker. Let's give Yash a big hand.
Reducing transaction costs by up to 50%. Transaction. My name is Yash Ramjas. I'm the founder and CEO of Globadime. And Globadime is a payment service provider that will offer online companies the ability to accept payments by a variety of payment methods and currencies. Perhaps you still don't know exactly what we are doing. We as a payment service provider offer payment methods. So these are the most important payment methods of the Netherlands. Most of you will know iDeal, these are the Dutch persons. Of course you have Klarna, the buy now, pay later option, very upcoming. You have the credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, the wallet, and SEPA payments. But this is just one country, the Netherlands. If we go further in Europe alone, you have all these payment methods that you as a company have to offer your customers. Otherwise, they will simply leave. You have over 200 payment methods. I couldn't fit them all in my slide, but bear with me. Payments is everywhere. Payments is everything. Look around you. The clothes you're wearing, the watch you're wearing, the shoes, the bags. Everything is payments. Of course, the drinks later has been paid for by somebody. Somebody needed to facilitate that payment. But it's actually more than you realize, because it's also your Netflix account, your Spotify account, your car payments, your internet subscription, your utility bills, name it. Everything is payments. So what is the problem? Yes, there are competitors in the market, but they do not run their business efficiently and effectively and are therefore very expensive. In a lot of countries, they still do not have the right payment methods available, and that leads to a lot of loss of revenue and profit. Well, the solution is that we are a payment service provider that cuts the intermediaries out. Well, what does it exactly mean? Well, there are essentially three primary payment pillars in a transaction process. And our competitors, like Molly and Stripe, only have one pillar in their own house. The other two payment pillars, they outsource to somebody else. And for every payment, they need to pay a markup on these transactions. What we will do, step by step, is that we will have all these payment methods and in all the three pillars in-house, and can therefore reduce transaction costs by 40 to 50% per transaction. Well, this graph shows you how important it is to provide the right payment methods. As you can see on the right side of yours, 80% of the people will simply leave your website if the right payment methods are not offered, and a very big part will also never come back, so you have lost them forever. Well, our target market, we will now focus on small to medium-sized companies and later expand to large companies and companies that are just starting. The reason being is that small and medium-sized companies also pay most in transaction fees in comparison to the larger companies. Well, we will start in the European Economic Area. This essentially means because with one license you can service this entire area, but for our MVP we will go live in the Netherlands and Belgium. And this sector is not slowing down anytime soon, because the sector will grow with 66% in 2026 in comparison to 2022, so plenty of growth opportunities. Competitor of partners, of course, on the right side you see all the competitors, but I can also see them as partners, because a lot of them outsource these activities, as I said before, and we could also help them with these activities for just a fraction of lower cost. Revenue model, of course, for us, it's transaction fees. You don't pay anything upfront with us. Of course, we do the invoices and subscriptions and a foreign exchange. Well, the timeline, in October we started developing our MVP. We are also happy to say that we have been accepted to an incubator program in Amsterdam. The next step is now developing the complete version of the MVP, and the first presentable version will be done in the beginning of February. And we're also looking for launching customers, so if anybody has a company that would like to have payments, please come to me after the drinks, or at the drinks. Of course, you have myself, been working on this for quite a while now. I have my co-founder, CTO Eric, has over 12 years experience, also gained his experience in transactions at ING, so we are a great team. Of course, we're also raising investments like many startups. We're currently raising 500,000 euros. And most of it will go to development costs, compliance, and licenses and partners. Of course, it will not only stay with payments. In the long run, we will also expand to other verticals like business banking, consumer banking, lending, and insurances, so we can create an entire ecosystem of businesses that can get everything at one company. Well, my name is Yash Ramjas, and if you want to connect with me, please do so. Thank you very much for your time.
questions for Jas. I'm curious a bit. I think you've got quite a big ambition, right?
Mhm.
How do you take that into your licensing strategy, right? So
Yeah.
are you now just going for a payment service license at first and expanding that to banking services later on? Is that sort of the strategy?
Yeah, so we're currently looking at payment institution license or the EMI license. Also working with a couple of lawyers and accountancy firms on that. And perhaps there's also a possibility to work under a license just for now. But we would not have other costs. It would be more an equity strategy with those companies.
And so one question I have as well is that let's say that you're looking for some pilot customers, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really nice. What are there any specific things that you say, any specific challenges that they run into that you want them to especially reach out to you for? That things that they say like, this is what we find difficult with other providers.
Yeah.
Can we call you for that?
Well, one primary thing is pricing, of course. Last week I spoke to a company and they paid 40 cents for ideal transactions, which is outrageous if you know anything about payments. So the primary concern that we hear is the transaction fees are way too high. And later we, of course, also want to expand to business banking. They also find difficulties there because I don't know if anybody has ever tried to open a business bank account in the Netherlands. It's a horror story, I can tell you.
Yeah.
So that's also something that we would like to solve in the long term.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks. Any questions for us from the room? Yeah,
please.
go ahead.
I'm just trying to understand how you get started, because your end strategy is to cut out everybody else,
Yeah.
right? So go straight from consumer to the final market.
Yeah.
But they don't have, they're going to have a bank account with different banks, right? So the initial offer to all the existing parties is, okay, do business with us and then we'll cut you out as soon as we can.
Yeah.
How do they react to that?
Well, the banks in general are not our competitors because what we do, we aggregate all the money flows, let's say for a week, and we send it to your own business bank account. That is how payment service providers essentially work. So we do not do direct competition with the banks.
What's the issue apart from the other payment customers, the payment providers?
That we are 50% cheaper, even if the banks are not our competitors. We can talk a little bit more about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly price. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick one. So you've gone really quickly, right? You founded in October. You've got an MVP now. You're essentially a tech business, also a finance business. So I'm interested in the tech side of it. What tech are you using that's allowing you to go that quickly? What products are you building? What languages are you building the product in?
This is a complementary question in one, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, so the MVP, the primary part is based on Java. So my CTO is primarily also a Java developer, so that makes sense. The MVP will have the core functionalities of the payment service provider. We do not have all the services yet because we need funding to get a bigger team, and then that allows us to have all the functionalities. But the core version, we can make ourselves. So that's what we are doing. So that went pretty fast.
So your CTO is building the app.
Yeah.
In Java, you're not using any kind of low-code tools to bootstrap anything like that. You're building from scratch.
Everything is built from scratch. Yeah. But he has already banking experience in making banking software. So that also helps, of course, in speed.
Thanks. Any final questions for Jas? No? Okay, let's give Lasje just a very big hand. Thank you. And indeed, go to menti.com for the final rating of today's presentation. I hope you all enjoyed all of them. It was quite a diverse landscape today, but I think it's really nice to actually have both young companies as well as mature companies all in one place, and hopefully also make sure that you can connect and learn from each other and potentially support each other. Did everyone get a chance to vote? Then I'll look thoroughly at the jury to see how things are going there. How's it going, Sylvia? Have we got Again, that's impossible. Okay. The winner of today, again, who's actually seems to be building up a collection of these, is Jas. Well done, congratulations. For your girlfriend, friend, mother, father, whoever, right? So they're very useful, so you probably find someone who likes them. They can keep everything warm and cold. So, no, we enjoy. Thank you very much for a pitch, and good luck indeed also with your fundraise as well as with for Principal as well, and everything else that you need. And I would definitely urge you all to reach out to them if you feel that you have feedback, a good connection, an idea, interest in funding, or know someone who might be. Please indeed connect to the parties that we saw today. And but let's give Jas first another big hand. Good luck. Yeah, just to check in on what we've got upcoming. We've got FinTech Insights coming up, which is like a brief tour towards what's happening in FinTech for everyone who's a bit new to it. We've got our annual member summit in the 1st of February, and our next meetup is on the Thursday again, this time in The Hague. So beware there. Take the train if you're coming from here, and otherwise we're looking forward in any case to see you there and look at, especially connect as well to the ecosystem locally over there. What else have we got? Yes, we'd like to, of course, we've got another QR code, right? So how many have we seen today? No, so we'd really love to learn what you thought about the event today, and please give us feedback because we'd always like to improve. So thank you for that. And I think with that said, one more thing? Oh yeah, this one, yeah. Please indeed rate. Sylvia would then be really grateful to you. No, so will I. Yeah, I really find it enjoyable. Thank you for all asking questions, being proactive, joining in on the quizzes and the fun. I hope you took away something from knowledge and perhaps make some good connections now afterwards during the drinks. Thanks again to Payhawk. Really grateful to be here, and thank you for sharing your story as well. I think great to have you, and feel welcome here. Thanks again. Look forward to come again sometime soon, and to everyone else, look forward to see you again at least next month, but maybe earlier. See you soon, and let's enjoy the drinks.